Just a reminder, this is once again for students. Thanks to Mr. Tata's gracious decision to hold this event. He has expressly stated that students first. So students, please don't feel shy. I will buy a bit of time for the students. On the point of being shy, Mr. Tata, I have a question I want to ask. I've read that you tend to, you've been known to be quite shy and reserved at times. Characteristics. So how has that in any way served as a challenge in perhaps trying to pursue moral courage in certain aspects of business?
Yes, it's true that I'm shy and kind of retiring, and one of the sacrifices I've made over the last 15 years is to have lost that anonymity which I enjoyed so much. It used to be a pleasure to walk down the beach and be by yourself instead of somebody coming up to you and asking for a job for their or saying that their car's left wheel was making noise and with that comes over the years somewhat of a defense mechanism. And first you're very receptive, but then when people call you at midnight and say their air conditioning doesn't work and you don't know what you're supposed to do, they're supposed to go with a screwdriver and try to fix it or refer him to a place, and eventually I guess a certain degree of frustration and a certain degree of reaction to that leads you to be less shy and maybe more provocative than you have, and you take it out on you people.
I think Chekai, Provost and I are a bit afraid now on the stage. If we are provoking you, please tell us. That said, my air conditioning at home is... But I will work on it.
Just don't call me.
With that, are there any other students who would like to question but not provoke our distinguished guest today? Mr. Tata, please.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Ratan and I'm an MBA student. I would like to ask Mr. Tata, what in his personal opinion are the current reforms that India needs to drive its growth? I mean, the GDP has been falling, so what, in your personal opinion, like Mr. Tata, do you think the current reforms are needed in India?
Sorry, the current...
Political reforms to improve growth,
No, the question is what the current reforms are doing for the growth of India, or
yes.
Okay. You know, I think after almost a decade of considerable growth, 8+%, and a very moderate inflation rate of over 4%. In 2008-9, India stumbled. It stumbled first because for reasons of energy costs and food costs, inflation shot up, in fact, for a period of time to double-digit figures. And the central bank, the Reserve Bank of India, set itself up in a very draconian manner to curb that inflation. We had about 13 interest rate rises in 1 year, and it brought investment, it got held back, growth stumbled, and a series of measures deprived India of the credibility that it had in terms of investor confidence, both from outside and inside. people started to wonder whether it was the time to make new investment, establish new capacity, or hold off. So that's the background, plus the scams and the court issues, all of which brought India down to 5 or sub 5% growth, which to many has been like a recession. So in that context, the measures that the most recent budget has done have been very moderate and perhaps, while they're a sign of moving in the right direction, the question that one must ask is it enough and is it too late? My own feeling is that some of the confidence in the economy amongst Indians and perhaps amongst investors is restored. But a lot more needs to be done if India is to be moving back into the visibility and the attraction that it had some years ago. And maybe just moderate moves are not going to be enough to undo the damage that has been done over the last few years. I think we will re-establish a 7% plus growth rate in a couple of years, driven by the fact that we've got pent-up demand in the country, but it's not going to be as attractive as it has been in the past.
Good morning, sir. I'm Rohan from SMU. Under your leadership, Tata Group acquired several companies overseas, Chorus, Jaguar, Land Rover. I was just curious if you noticed any distinct differences between the management style and work ethic at these companies versus the Indian Tata Group, the corresponding Tata Group companies in India.
Oh yes, tremendous differences. Some of them had to be equalized, obviously, and some, I think, it was a learning exercise for us, and we gained something from them. I need to say a couple of things, because in these acquisitions we are located 5,000 odd miles away from these companies, and because it has not been our style to send in a transition team the next day and change the management and replace them with Indian management. Whenever we've made an acquisition, one of the things we have done in a quiet way but quite extensively is satisfy ourselves that the DNA of the company and the human chemistry is something that's compatible to ours, both in terms of values, in terms of integrity, in terms of the manner in which the company is run. And if a company, for example, had an armament company as a subsidiary, I don't think we'd really be very keen to acquire that company. If the company was making landmines, I don't think somewhere in the periphery, we would not necessarily want to be associated with that. So I think we make these inquiries and tests and try to determine whether we can coexist. And then we make the acquisition. And then we are confined to a few people who feel differently, and we may need to make some changes, but they're then peripheral. And most of our acquisitions depend on the company, the acquired company itself, making their own destiny, and us supporting them or guiding them.
All right. I think we'll have from you, sir, and then.
Good morning, sir. My name is Nitin, and I'm a student at SMU. I was just wondering, You went to Cornell for an undergraduate degree in architecture and then moved on to Harvard for a degree in business management. Right after which you took over the Tata Group. I was just wondering if you were to list 3 lessons that you learned in your through your college life that you saw as a direct application later in life, be it academic or otherwise, what would they be?
Mr. Tata, I think it's important to set the context. We are now going into our 11th week of the term. And exams are coming, so a lot of us are wondering, is this all worthwhile?
One thing I learned, which is quite often you learn things in a very casual, offhand way. I don't mean that you learn something from what's written on a bathroom wall or something, but equally by accident. And so one of them was in my sophomore year in college. I'd always grown up, for some reason, with my father saying, if you do this, I'll do this. There was always a quid pro quo. So at some stage, one of my classmates said, why is it that everything you do has this quid pro quo? Why can't you just ask or do something without a quid pro quo? And that was a relatively unrelated issue for later in life, but it made a big difference on me because I had to go back and think that this was a very fundamental change in the way I did things. That's one. The other was at the Harvard Business School later, in that there was one course which left a very great mark on me and has helped me enormously in business. And that was a statement that put yourself on the other side, in the shoes of the person on the other side, and look at the problem from his standpoint. And I cannot say how much that has helped me from time to time in discussions, in negotiations, in relationship building. And so I can give you 2 examples. The third doesn't readily come to mind. But I think that if I were to make a third, I would say that you've got to keep informing yourself that humility and public visibility are 2 things you have to cope with. You in business, in many cases, you're in a fishbowl, and a decision that you make must stand the test of public scrutiny, and only you can keep testing that yourself. The day you feel that something doesn't quite stand that test, my advice would be, don't do it. Even if you feel that you're losing out, don't do it. And if it does stand that test, have the guts to do it, if that's what you believe is the right thing.
Question in the front?
Good morning, Mr. Tata. My name is Sagar, and I'm an SME student here last year, about to graduate. My question to you is related to what you just said, and it's one of your famous quotes I have read. You said, I don't believe in making right decisions. I take a decision and make them right. And when I pondered over what you said, somehow I got a feeling that while it is a very good quote and it inspires a lot of people, I don't know how realistic it is in the world that we live in, isn't it? In business schools all around the world, we're all taught the meaning of flexible leadership, where you change your decisions once you have new information coming in. So how realistic is sticking to your guns and just making any decision that you take right and follow it through? Thank you.
First of all, let's accept that not all decisions that a human being makes are going to be right. And you are going to make some mistakes and you are going to be wrong, either because of something you did or because the environment wasn't what you thought it was. So 2 or 3 things. I think you have to, on the one hand, balance tenacity to make it right and balance it from being stubborn to the extent that you endanger your company by just pursuing something because you did it and you want to make it right. As against accepting that things have changed and calling it quits, or saying that you were wrong. That takes a lot of guts to stand up and say you were wrong. But to say it, people will respect you for that if that happens. And in Tata's there have been several decisions that one could say were wrong, or were not quite what one expected them to be. And you should analyze why that is so, and if you feel that there's a need for a change or a shift, one should do it. And the organization will respect you for it. So I don't think one should take the stand that it's your decision, so you're going to make it right, and then you're going to throw billions of dollars worth of money into trying to make it right, because probably after a while it's not going to be worthwhile anyway. I don't know if I've answered your question, but I don't think it's possible to answer what you may see through life.
Sure. For those of you who want to answer questions and you think that I'm not being a good moderator and looking at your hands, feel free to start queuing up with the mics. That's fine as well. I notice in most events that I go to, that's what happens. Especially with Mr. Tata, I think the queue will extend to the swimming pool upstairs.
I'm letting you respond to the raised hands.
Sure.
I'm just here at your wish.
Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Devika and I'm a final year student here at SMU. I want to know what makes you happy and what or where or whom do you draw your strength from?
What makes you happy and
What or where or whom do you draw your strength from?
well, that's that's really a difficult question to answer. I'd have to say that a person like me, after a while, is pretty moody. If you have a bad day, you want to be alone, and what makes you happy is to be alone and to have your space. And at other times, you like to be with someone who understands you. There are times when you can be with someone. The true test is if that person and you can be together and perhaps not even say a word to each other, but you're there when you need the other person to speak to or to talk to. That's kind of the person you'd want to be with if you had to. What makes you happy? I think that also depends on a moment. For me, sometimes my happiest moments is to go home and be with my 2 dogs, because they don't seek anything from you except your affection and your attention, and that's all. And they give you everything for that. So it's a lovely feeling. We humans have sometimes forgotten how to do that.
My name is Irina. I'm an MBA student here and I'm from Russia. And Russia and India have something similar, and unfortunately some of the things are not the good ones. So Russia and India are known to be countries that face the issue of bribery. My question is, do you think a big and influential company can do something other than adapt to the existing conditions in the country to help the country cope with the issue of bribery?
I didn't quite get the question.
Yeah, the question is that, I guess, like in Russia, there is this bribery issue in India. So, as a big company, can you do anything to cope with this issue, to help the government, the society, to go through this? I mean, to cope somehow with this. In many cases, companies just adapt to this unpleasant thing happening in the country, like bribery and giving bribes and everything. But as a big company, can you change something in the way government works?
Okay. Very good question and very topical in today's global context. I think if I just talk from our own experience, you can stand up and work against corruption and just say that you will not do it, and that's what we endeavor to do. And I say endeavor to do because as far as the company is concerned, we do not do it. But whether I can talk for every single person who at some low level has partaken in getting something done for a gratification, I can't vouch for that. But as a company and as a policy, we will not bribe or buy our way to a solution. Can we do anything to help the government? I think that's first question is, does the government want to be helped? Does it want to wipe out corruption? And that requires a resolve, in my view, at the top to make that happen. In order for that to happen, the government has to be strong and be able to do something that's at government level. So the answer to the second part of your question is probably there's nothing that a company can do other than to do it for themselves and operate that way. Do you lose out? Yes, you do lose out from time to time. But you can go to sleep at night saying, I didn't succumb.
Hi, good morning, sir. My name is Nidhi and I'm a student in SMU. It's good to have you here. My question to you is, can Indian companies maintain high ethical standards in this current prevailing environment, given that there are changes in the economic, political and cultural issues?
She was asking, I think, if Indian companies can maintain ethical standards given the period of flux and change. Is that right?
Yeah. The current recent changes that happen in India, either political or cultural. So can Indian companies maintain ethical standards in this situation?
In India?
Yep, in India.
You're referring to our experience in this area or our...
Yes, sir, because Tata is known for maintaining having one of the highest ethical standards and practices. So my question is, because of these changes, do you think companies will have to mold their strategies or will they be able to adapt themselves or not?
They may adapt to
The current situation in the
to a system that might be corrupt.
Probably.
You know, I think if you want to fight corruption, you must be prepared to lose out in some cases and be victorious in others. There have been many known examples of where we have lost out, and we have to be prepared to do that if that's what you want to do. I think in context of Singapore, some years ago we wanted to have a joint venture airline with Singapore Airlines. It would have been a great thing for India. And there's, let me stop a minute and say, very often this so-called corruption that we talk about has its genesis not in the government, but in a vested interest group in the country, quite often in the private sector that wants to continue protection for themselves in their business. And it gets put into government policy because those people are influential sources of interaction with the government. So, at that time, another airline was very keen to make sure that competition did not come. And through 3 governments in India, just made it impossible for us to enter. And so Singapore Airlines, SIA, and we had no choice but to walk away from that opportunity. That's one very glaring example of what we did and what we gave up, whereas I think there would have been other ways for us to get what we wanted. There have been other examples where we have stood by our guns and not succumbed to direct or indirect issues of this nature, and where people in the government have been upright and have cleared our projects or supported us because that would be the right thing. And so you end up being visibly victorious. You fought something, stood your ground, and you won. And both things have happened. And there have been other companies and other views that would say, why do you do this? Maybe the easier thing to do, the faster way to grow is to succumb. And that, I think, is leading to the rot that you see in the world around you more and more. And I think there's going to be a reaction to that at some point in time, where people at the rank and file feel that they've been disadvantaged. So